Hi, everyone, and welcome back to episode 5 of the Simply Whelmed podcast. I'm your host, Colin, and I'm joined by my co-host, Christian.
How we doing, everybody?
We're just a couple of best friends who are passionate about all things pop culture. If you're looking for lukewarm takes on movies, video games, or TV shows, we've got the show for you. And this week, actually, we have kind of a dreaded show for us. We decided to go into the abyss. And that we forced ourselves into seeing Morbius. We justified it by the podcast. We were like, well, we got to watch it for the podcast.
Yeah, we got to see it.
Like, we weren't happy about going to go see it. We almost didn't see it, but we were like committed. We said it last week on the podcast that we're going to see it, so we had to. But without getting too into that, it should give us some interesting discussion, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Before we get into that discussion for the week, we have to talk about E3 being canceled. Breath of the Wild 2 has been delayed. Obi-Wan has been delayed. The Crow reboot is back again. Moon Knight reviews are in. And the Game of Thrones prequel actually has a release date finally.
My whole thing, so for Kenobi...
Maybe you could let me get to it, baby.
Oh, word, yeah, go.
Yeah. All right. Are you ready to get into the news?
I'm so ready.
All right, so we'll start off the top. The Entertainment Software Association that runs E3 announced that in addition to not holding a physical convention, they will not be holding a digital conference either in 2022. So last year, basically, due to COVID, they just held like a virtual E3.
Sure. Yeah.
And so they released a statement this year, like just this week, that said E3 will return in 2023 with a reinvigorated showcase that celebrates new and exciting video games and industry innovations. We previously announced that E3 would not be held in person in 2022 due to the ongoing health risks surrounding COVID-19. Today we announced there will also be no digital E3 showcase in 2022. They go on to say that basically they're instead devoting all their energy and resources to delivering quote, a revitalized physical and digital E3 experience next summer. Whether enjoyed from the show floor or your favorite devices, the 2023 showcase will bring the community, media, and industry back together in an all-new format and interactive experience.
Sounds like a whole lot of hubbub to me.
Yeah, so I'm thinking it's kind of a business move for them that it's been a slow few years anyhow for E3, where just as the world moves on, and with, like, you know, they're talking there, the access of I can watch any sort of conference or anything like that from my phone, anything like that. And you figure the last couple of years, especially with COVID, the gaming world has kind of been slow. Not a lot of releases. And you've got Sony holding their own state of plays, like semi-regularly, you know, where they're just, here's what we're working on, right?
Right.
And Nintendo does the Nintendo Directs. Microsoft seems to be the only major player that doesn't have like its own showcase on its projects. So, you know, you've got two of the big three that have no real reason to be at E3, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think they really need the, yeah.
And so it sounds like we need to go to E3 next year.
Pass.
See what all the hubbub's about.
It sounds like there isn't much of a hubbub.
Well, then
anymore.
It sounds like you would be underwhelmed.
Yeah. Or simply whelmed. So, did you have anything on E3?
I don't know why there wouldn't. Well, I suppose, yeah. Going back to what you're saying about Microsoft being the only one that has a reason to be there. I don't know. I really enjoy E3, so yeah. I would really hope that, like, I understand that Sony and Nintendo have their own platform, but I would really like to see, maybe they put some, certain things aside just for E3. I could be happy and content with that.
Yeah, or even try and get more. They could pivot and focus on more of the smaller, like, not necessarily indie, but the few like developers that are independent still.
Yeah,
where they're not bought up by Sony or Microsoft, and just have them be the showcases as opposed to the big companies.
Which again, I'd be very excited to see.
Yeah. Speaking of Nintendo and all that, the Legend of Zelda series producer Eiji Aonuma, I believe I pronounced that incorrectly, announced last Tuesday on Nintendo's official Twitter account. He posted a video basically saying that the Breath of the Wild sequel will not make its 2022 release, and they've set a new goal of spring 2023. So in the video update, Ionuma says, for those of you who have been looking forward to a release this year, we apologize. The producer went on to share that, as previously announced, the game will not just take place on the ground, but in the skies above, and there will be an even wider variety of features you can enjoy. In order to make this game's experience something special, the entire development team is continuing to work diligently on this game, so please wait a while longer. So I think Nintendo is one that I usually have a bit of faith in when they delay something, because at least they're delaying it and they're saying, yeah, we don't think we can put out what we want to put out if we keep this time constraint on ourselves. You know
Also,
what I mean?
I feel like they've been dropping some mad heat lately. They dropped. I mean, they have.
They got the gas.
Yeah, they got Pokemon Sword and Shield that came out, and then they released a bunch of new tracks on Mario Kart. Well, yeah. Well, before that, they released Pokemon. They remastered Pearl and Diamond, which I really want to play. And then
Is it? I don't remember what it's called. I think it's Arceus.
Something like that. Arceus.
Arctic Circle, some shit.
Something like that. But it looks really good. And then they still released Kirby.
Right.
So I mean, I feel like it is bummed. Well, I really can't say a whole lot. I haven't beaten
Breath of the Wild.
I still need to. So honestly, that's kind of like a swipe of sweat from the forehead thing going, thank God I have time.
Bought me a year.
But, so, they dropped a whole lot of stuff. So I feel like, I'm like, okay, well, that's okay.
Yeah, they're not just leaving us high and dry.
Right, yeah, I still have a ton of stuff I could do.
Yeah, that I can work through. But yeah, I mean, I guess it's a good thing that they're like, we want to make the thing that we wanted to create, and we don't want to release like a buggy, half-finished game and still charge you full price, right?
Right, which is 100% okay with me.
Yeah, it's a welcome delay. Speaking of delays, Obi-Wan's been delayed by 2 days, and it will now premiere on Friday, May 27th, and we're actually going to get the first 2 episodes of the series right on day 1 there, as opposed to just the single episode release.
Which I'm so hot and bothered about. Like, it's not even funny.
And I wonder... So I know that after, I want to say it was Loki, that switched it up from being Friday releases to Wednesday releases. I wonder why they're deciding to go back to Friday. Like if they've noticed that maybe it takes a couple days for people to watch it because they get the free time on the weekend or what. So they want those first day views. I don't know.
I actually know the reason for that.
Oh, okay.
It's because the Simply Won't podcast comes out every Wednesday. So make sure you guys tune in for that. Every Wednesday.
They don't want to compete.
Yeah, they can't handle the smoke.
Can't handle the heat. Like it's too much. But yeah, so I mean that's obviously it's not a major news story. It's just interesting that. But they felt bad enough about the 2 days that they posted a video. They got Ewan McGregor to come back in, Obi-Wan himself, and basically be like, guys, don't freak the fuck out, but we're gonna push it back a couple days. But you're gonna get 2 episodes. So they were like, if Obi-Wan drops the news, they can't be mad at him.
But I feel like there's a lot of hype behind it because
so they want to make sure.
Yeah, especially with like Mandalorian, Book of Boba, stuff like that. Everything's been coming out and everyone's been really excited about it.
Yeah.
So people I feel like are just on the edge of their seat because they're like, oh my God, Obi-Wan Kenobi's coming back.
And you figure Obi-Wan has been in the works since before the Solo movie came out. Because originally it was going to be a movie, and it had James Mangold, who directed Logan, attached to write and direct it. And then that just fell through after Solo flopped. They were like, yeah, we're scrapping the movie ideas. And then it got picked back up as a miniseries. So it's been long awaited, and I think it's like the only Solo series, or like Solo project that I wanted. Like I was like, just give me fucking Obi-Wan. I don't care about Boba Fett. I don't care about fucking Solo. None of it. Give me Obi. And it's coming.
Yeah, I feel like just from the small snippet of the trailer that I've seen, I feel like it's just... I'm not sure, if that's his natural hair, if he's wearing a wig, but he's starting to get a little gray.
Right.
And so it's just like, if that's natural, like, it's just full circle.
Yeah, and I would not be surprised if it's natural because, like, I've seen him in interviews and stuff where he's got a full beard and things like that, and he's
Hmm.
got grays and stuff in it. So, I mean, you figure he's like a 45 to 50-year-old man. So, yeah, he's right in the sweet spot there.
Yeah.
You got any more thoughts there?
No, I'm super excited for it. I wasn't too bummed that it was delayed just a couple days. If it would have been like a month, I probably would have been a little more bummed. But
Right.
the fact that they were, cool enough to be like, listen, yeah, we're sorry we got to push it back, but we're dropping 2 episodes with it, so hopefully that can make up for it. And I feel like
Yeah.
that blew out of the water.
And honestly, like if they hadn't made a big announcement about it, it wouldn't have been news. The fact that it was moving 2 days, you know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
Because that's nothing. But yeah, I'm excited for it.
Yeah.
After years, okay, you probably don't even know what this is. After years of false starts and just sitting in development hell, the Crow reboot seems ready to be on again. So have you seen The Crow from like
I have
1994?
not.
Yeah, so it was like I think it did really well in theaters. Like it was monetarily actually pretty successful, but it got this like cult following as like a goth idol. Okay, so The Crow, it was an indie comic by I wrote his name down because I didn't want to forget to give credit. James O. Barr. It was from the '80s, and it's about this man and his fiance who are like assaulted and killed by a gang after their car breaks down. And the man, is brought back to life by a crow, and he just goes on a revenge mission to kill the people responsible for his and his wife's deaths.
Okay.
And so they made a movie about it in the '90s. An adaptation, probably one of the earlier like indie comics adapted to a film. Um, but it actually had Jason Lee, the son of Bruce Lee, in the lead role, and he was killed pretty famously on set in an accident not too dissimilar from what happened with Alec Baldwin,
Okay.
where there was a weapon with a blank was supposed to have a blank in it, and I don't remember all the details, but basically the blank fired and lodged right in his chest and killed him. And so it built up this cult following and all that. But I really enjoyed the movie, and they've been trying to reboot it. It had like 3 sequels, and the last one came out in like 2005, and then they were all like direct to video after the first one. And then come like 2010, I want to say, they started like, yeah, we should reboot this boy. And it hopped around from director to writer to this person's going to star, this person's going to star. And the last I had heard about it was like 2018, 2017. And Jason Momoa was set to star in it, which is not the image of the Crow at all. Like this relatively thin, goth-looking guy, and it's just Jason Momoa.
I hope to see Jason Momoa with like some of his hair covering one eye.
Yeah,
And he's got like a Blink 182 or Pierce the Veil t-shirt on and skinny jeans.
but no. So actually, I'm much more happy with who they announced to play him in this final shot at it, which seems to be going forward. Bill Skarsgård, who played Pennywise the Clown in the It movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's and they announced that I want to say yesterday. I think I saw it was a pretty recent article that he's going to star in the reboot, and it's going to be directed by Rupert Sanders, who directed Snow White and the Huntsman with Kristen Stewart, and he did Ghost in the Shell with Scarlett Johansson.
Oh, I haven't seen that, but I really wanted to.
I didn't either. That one kind of flew under the radar for me. But it's set to start filming in early June, and they've already given it a $50 million budget, which is relatively low, but I can understand the hesitancy to give it a lot of money, right?
Sure.
And it doesn't, I mean, The Crow doesn't have, like, big supernatural powers. It shouldn't be effects heavy. And it would probably do best, I think, as a rated R project, so it makes sense to give it a lower budget anyhow, because you're limiting the audience. But I'm just happy to see it again, and it's one of the few that, like, yeah, you know what? It's been over, 15, it's almost been 20 years since the last movie, and it was a direct-to-video, so really it's been more than that.
Right.
So it's one of the few that's like, yeah, we could probably reboot that, and enough people don't know what it is that you could probably draw in a lot of new audience members.
Yeah.
And it's actually the script is by Zach Balan, who just got nominated for an Oscar for writing King Richard, which is what Will Smith won his Oscar for. We're not going to talk about it. I don't want to get into the drama.
No.
But yeah, so do you have any thoughts on that? I know it's kind of not something you're familiar with, but Like, does
Yeah,
the
I'd
premise
like to
sound anything to you?
see. I mean, the premise sounds interesting. A crow brings back alive some dude, and he just starts going on a rampage. I mean, who? I mean, of course, that sounds interesting.
Yeah,
I'd like to probably see the originals first before I see the new one, just so I'm caught
yeah,
up. But I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to it, especially going in like kind of blind on it.
right. And Bill Skarsgård, I like the idea of when I was reading about Bill, I'm trying to see if he'd done any other like action movies or things like that. Not really, but he's got a couple coming up that sound like they might be more in the action genre. So he might be trying to rebrand himself as not just the horror guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because he's actually going to be in John Wick Chapter 4, probably as a bad guy, because
Mm-hmm.
he's got the face for it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I know how you feel about John Wick. And honestly, the setup kind of is like a John Wick on crack, right? Like,
Yeah.
or a John Wick on acid, where it's, you know, a man coming back for revenge, right? And just going on a rampage. I'm going to get the guy that killed my wife in this instance, not just my dog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So
John Wick
I'm
1, cinematic masterpiece. John Wick 2, cinematic masterpiece. John Wick 3, it was pretty good.
pretty
But
good. Yeah.
But John Wick 4, I don't know why, but like I get so excited just the thought of it.
Yeah, they really need to. I think they need to wrap it in because yeah, it was
Yeah,
like
I agree.
John Wick 3 was like, all right, how many times can he do 2 shots in the chest, 1 shot in the head, move forward, punch a guy in the neck, 2 shots in the chest, 1 shot in the head, and it was like, all right, yeah, I've seen it for 3 movies now, and it stopped being interesting halfway through this movie. Like you need to find some way to mix it up, and give us more than just more of the same for 4 movies in
Yeah.
a row. You know.
I will say they did a really good job at the end of the third one,
Mhm.
leading up to the fourth one, like getting me excited for it.
Yeah,
So I'm not
yeah.
sure
Where
maybe
by
if
the
it
end
was
you're like,
already.
ooh,
Yeah, I'm not sure if it was like planned to have a fourth one or how many they're trying to make. But
yeah,
if they wrap it up with the fourth one, I would be very excited for it, and I'd
yeah,
be very
yeah.
interested to see what happens.
Yes. Any more thoughts on The Crow?
No, yeah, I'm excited to see it. Yeah, I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to it.
So Moon Knight is actually the highest rated first episode for a Marvel Disney Plus show, despite some political troubles. So Rotten Tomatoes critics score of 87% for the first episode, and an audience score of 94%. We actually can't really rely on IMDb scores right now because it's being review bombed by Turkish citizens over the mention of the Armenian genocide. So if you remember in the episode, um, Ethan Hawke's character, who kind of runs a cult, is running down all the things that his goddess could have stopped, he feels, and he lists the Armenian genocide. And
Okay.
without getting in too deep or too involved in like some heavy political stuff, the Armenian genocide was carried out during World War One, and it involved the killing and deportation of Armenians by the Ottoman Empire, and like roughly, potentially 1.5 million people died as a result of it. And the Turkish government, which is, you know, was the Ottoman Empire at the time, still considers it a legitimate action that doesn't constitute a genocide. So, because they don't recognize it as a genocide, a lot of the people were pretty upset that they called it the Armenian genocide, and they've been review bombing it with 1-star reviews in an attempt of, like, petty, petty revenge, I guess.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed that episode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't want to get too involved on it because we plan on doing a wrap up when the series concludes. I think it's only 6 episodes, maybe a little bit more. I think it might be 7. Um, but so far, I agree. Like, I love the first episode, and I like the angle that they're approaching the character from, trying to avoid treading over the same like story beats as you always do in an origin story.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, without getting into that, I do like the angle they've taken to kind of avoid that.
Yeah, I'm very excited for more episodes.
Yeah,
It was just super good. Yeah, I'm
yeah,
just
and with
I want to get into it, but like
I
I
know,
want to get into it.
yeah, and with Oscar Isaac, I really hope that it's more than just a series. Like he ends up being folded in.
Yeah, he's so talented. Oscar Isaac, I feel such a good year for him. I know we talked about that briefly, but everything he's been in lately has just been nothing but amazing.
Yeah, he's just he's bringing the gas, you know.
Yeah, fuels in the tank, you know.
uh, so, and then for all the Game of Thrones fans, The prequel series House of the Dragon has received a release date of August 21st, 2022. And interestingly, I noticed that it puts the release window about 12 days before Amazon's Lord of the Rings series, The Rings of Power. So it might be like a little bit of a petty like undercut by HBO, right? Trying to keep their status as like, this is where you come to see modern fantasy.
Right.
But I do think, honestly, that House of the Dragon has a bit of an uphill battle because a lot of fans were unhappy with the way Game of Thrones ended, myself included. However, I mean, obviously, this is a different. It's got some of the people that worked on the original series, but it's not the original series. So I'm trying to keep an open mind about it. But like my excitement for the brand really is diminished. But I did watch a trailer and it made me a little bit excited. And reading more about it, I was like, okay, this one's going to take place about 200 years before the original series, and it follows the House Targaryen, which is Daenerys' family, during a bloody civil war. And it stars Emma Darcy, who seems to be an up-and-coming actor with a few TV credits, mostly on British television, as Princess Rhaenyra Targaryen. And Matt Smith, most famous for being the 11th Doctor in Doctor Who, but we also just saw him play the villain in Morbius, and he's playing Prince Daemon Targaryen. So yeah, I mean, I'm excited to watch it. Like I said, I'm both excited and not. I'm a little nervous, honestly.
I slept real hard on
Game of
that
Thrones?
dragon show. Yeah, whatever it's called.
That dragon show.
Yeah, I slept real hard on it. Just because I don't know, I just never got around to it, and then I heard the ending was mutt butt.
Yeah,
So so I was like, oh well, I guess I don't want to watch that.
Right, and that's the hard part is like there's days where I'm like, man, I really kind of want to rewatch that because there is a lot of gold like in the early seasons. But then it just takes such a steep dive. And honestly, I was the same way. I had slept on it, but my wife was like just over the moon for it, and I was like, all right, fine. Like we got HBO Max, and I was like, fuck it. Like the final season's coming up, I'm just gonna binge it, and I did. I binged it in like 2 weeks and caught up just in time to like the day that I finished catching up was the day that the finale aired. So I got to watch the finale with my wife, and I got a really good image of how quick the quality declined, because it was like I watched the first 7 seasons in the matter of 2 weeks, and then 8 came out, and it was like, well, this is just different. Like, this isn't as good as it has been. What happened? And I mean, it's kind of a dead horse. I don't want to tread the same ground as other people have a million times.
It ain't got no gas in it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, it really took the steam out. So I hope that this can kind of get out from under that shadow and be a good series, because obviously a lot of people are putting some work into it and money and sweat, blood, and tears and all that, and you would want it to be successful, because if it's good, the fans will enjoy it, and it gives us something new to enjoy and take in, and it gives them obviously some joy that the thing they've created is good and people like it.
Yeah.
And, speaking of Matt Smith, boom, I've got a segue for you. Morbius for time.
Oh.
You didn't see that shit coming. That shit came right out of the blue. All right, so Morbius, I'll go ahead and get it out of the way now. I wrote it down, and it's not gas, but I love it. Morbius, more like Less-Bius, please. Right? Right? Because more. But
thank you for listening to the episode. If you guys like it,
yeah, because like I want less of it. So performance, the domestic box office is estimated to be about $39 million for a global total of about $84 million, on a budget estimated to be about $75 million before marketing. So best estimates put the true budget, including the marketing, somewhere around 125 to 150 million. So this film is actually well on its way to breaking even. The reception, reviews seem to float between bad and mixed at best, with a few like hardcore fans being very passionate about their love for it. I was reading some of the Rotten Tomatoes user reviews, and I think there's a lot of unwell people there.
I thought it was the movie of the year.
Yeah, no, so did they. It's currently sitting at a 5 out of 10 stars on IMDb. Metacritic has it at a 36 out of 100 from the critics, and a 6.5 out of 10 for the user score. And Rotten Tomatoes currently has a critic score of 17% and a user score of 70%. So there's a little bit of a divide there. But there does seem to be a few people bringing up on the internet that it's possibly being brigaded by like hardcore Jared Leto fans and like just vampire fans in general.
Yeah.
That they're like just mass reviewing it well on Rotten Tomatoes, whether they've seen it yet or not, and calling it like just an Oscar masterpiece and stuff. Somebody said,
Yeah.
and like I don't want to get into, we're not going to bash on it yet. Somebody straight up said Oscar-winning performance by Jared Leto.
You're joking.
Like no, like dead ass. They said that.
You're not gonna like me when I'm hungry.
Oh, yeah. So the cast and crew, it's directed by Daniel Espinosa, who made the movie Life, which was the space alien one with Jake Gyllenhaal and Ryan Reynolds.
Ryan Reynolds. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's got the writer team Matt Sazama and Burke Sharpless, who dropped gold like Dracula Untold and Gods and Kings. And obviously the cast, you've got Jared Leto, who plays Dr. Michael Morbius. Matt Smith is Milo. Jared Harris from Chernobyl and The Crown is Dr. Emil Nicholas. And you've got Adria Arjona from, I hope I'm saying her last name correctly, from Pacific Rim Uprising and True Detective, and she was Dr. Martine Bancroft. And then you got Tyrese Gibson from Transformers and Fast and Furious, and he was Agent Stroud, and his partner was played by Al Madrigal, who was Agent Rodriguez. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. Christian, you got a plot synopsis you can read off to me, since I know you're not going to make it up on the spot.
No, absolutely. Dangerously ill with a rare blood disorder and determined to save others from the same fate, Dr. Morbius attempts to... hold on, let's retry this because even the Google is not in order.
I believe what you mean is biochemist Michael Morbius tries to cure himself of a rare blood disease, but he inadvertently infects himself with a form of vampirism instead.
Like, that's exactly what I said, but
Yeah, like you stole the words right out of my mouth. Are you in my head?
Yeah.
Do you want to just get into it? Like that, we won't spoil it yet, but I don't think there's a lot to spoil in general. But we'll save as much as we can until we say spoiler. All right.
Yeah.
Do you want to go first? Or do you want me to go first?
I'll go.
I've got a lot. I say you should probably go. I've got a lot.
So, story notes. It was just bad writing.
Yeah.
There was a lot of points in time where I felt confused or lost throughout the story. Like there's just either so much going on at points,
Christian, you're just not smart enough to get it.
You might be onto something.
No, go ahead.
But I just felt lost, and there's some liners that, like, because they try to make this a very serious film.
Yes. Yeah. I've got some notes on that.
Yeah, and for trying to make it such a serious film, it just flopped. I was very disappointed with it. The chemistry between the characters just wasn't adding up. There was a lot of plot, like potholes in it. Just like the entire time, I'm trying to figure out what is the point. Like, where is this going?
Right.
I mean, that's literally all I have that's not spoilery, because everything else leads just to points in the movie.
Right, so I got a little bit more non-spoiler stuff written down than you, but my spoiler stuff is like pages long. So, story notes, spoiler free. I felt like there was a few different edits of the movie, maybe, and we got the Frankenstein's monster of all of them. Where maybe it started off as one thing, they didn't like it, so they re-edited it. And then they're like, well, I think we need that scene from the first cut, and it just got all pasted together, and we just got a hodgepodge at the end. It was mostly boring, I thought, with a few moments that made you go, you know what, I wish this movie had more moments like that. It was largely unconnected, to other properties.
Sorry to interrupt, but
go
on
ahead,
that, just so I don't forget. There were parts throughout the movie that I remember we were talking about afterwards, and I was like, I wanted more of that. Like that had the movie had potential.
It did, yeah.
And there just
something in there
it
that they just didn't find. It was pretty forgettable, honestly. Like as I started writing my notes, it was like things came back to me. And I went, "Oh, right, yeah." But if you'd asked me, like gun to the head, what was your favorite part of the movie, I would have struggled. Um,
Yeah.
I wrote, this movie happened to me. I sat in my seat and the movie just kind of washed over me, and then it stopped happening, and I got up and I left.
Yeah.
So
I
that,
remember
that
like halfway through the movie, I looked at you and I was like, I gotta go take a leak. And I got up and I went to the bathroom and I'm, standing in the the little urinal stall and I
yeah.
look behind me and I see just an empty, toilet stall. And I thought to myself, I was like, man, should I just try to squeeze one out and scroll on my phone for a little bit to kill some time? And then I was
Just
like,
pinch a loaf.
and I was like, no, I should probably finish this,
It wasn't even
So
that.
like,
You just didn't want to leave your boy hanging in there, did you?
yeah, it's just
You're
like,
like, yeah,
nah,
that's it. Yeah.
I gotta go. But I definitely took my time walking back. I was looking at the wallpaper that they had in
Right,
the
yeah.
theater.
Admiring posters. Yeah.
Yeah, it just makes me think of the is it Pablo Escobar meme where he's like
Yeah,
standing in
yeah,
the
where he's
pool with
just
his arms
standing in the
behind his back.
pool. Yeah.
Just moments like that. I definitely felt myself.
So my characters in chemistry, without getting into spoilers, I said that Dr. Morbius is hard to characterize. He is, in quotes, funny at times, and at others he is deadly serious. Seems to be like the bad boy of science without being a bad boy at all. Dr. Bancroft is a love interest of sorts, but there's very little chemistry between the two characters. She seems to be opposed to some of the science experiments of Morbius's until she just isn't. And so it was kind of hard to get a read on like her moral compass. Morbius and Milo are like best friends and they're brothers after being in the same hospital for what seemed on screen to be like a day. And I never really bought their relationship. But Matt Smith was actually like a really big bright spot for me. He was a lot of fun to watch, and it seemed like he was having fun playing his role. Um, the FBI agents literally could have not been in the movie, and it wouldn't have changed anything.
Yeah. Yep.
And I honestly think, and this kind of goes, and I'll have to elaborate once we get into spoilers, but I think Agent Rodriguez, which is his partner, was supposed to be the comedic relief in a more funny version of the movie that they cut. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I 100% agree with you.
And that's all I have that I don't consider spoilers. So we'll rate it. Obviously, I think it's pretty obvious that we think it was overwhelmingly good.
Yeah.
Yes, correct. No, it was incredibly underwhelming.
Yeah. I set the bar really, really low for it, and somehow it beat the bar.
Yeah, I had heard bad things, and I was trying to keep a clear head, but I was like, okay, I need to be prepared for it to not be good, and it wasn't. So that was good that I prepared myself. Spoilers. Do you want to start? Yeah, you do your spoiler notes because I'll have to take a breath before I read mine.
No, yeah, you're all good. Yeah, starting back up with the story notes and it having bad writing, there was they cut out so much comedic relief that we saw in like the trailers,
Right.
to make it like a more serious film, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that per se. But there was a specific line I wanted to point out where Dr. Michael Morbius is in jail and they have him chained up to the table.
Yeah. They left this one in. This happens.
Yeah. And he has to drink blood every so often or else he basically starts tweaking.
Yeah.
And
he's fiending for it.
He's fiending for it.
He is just thick with it.
But so yeah, he hasn't had blood in so long and he's starting to tweak and the detectives are looking at him and he's like, "Sorry, I'm getting hungry. You're not gonna like me when I'm hungry." And I looked over at Colin and I busted out laughing.
Yeah,
and
we made eye contact and we both had a look of like, no fucking way, like, nah.
Like, that's so. There's no other way to put it. That's cringy. Like it's like that can't be real that they tried to do such a serious take on that. And I felt so bad because there's people in there trying to enjoy the movie, which I don't see how they could. But like I'm covering my mouth like with my shirt, like trying to hold this in because I'm like, no fucking way.
And it threads that needle where like I'm like, was that supposed to be a joke? You know? And I don't like it wasn't delivered like a joke. But it sounds like, it's like a joke for the audience, maybe. But if it was, we laughed. Like, they nailed it. But we weren't laughing at the joke. We were laughing at how fucking much it made my face pucker. Like,
Yeah. And then just like there's a lot of like I was saying, going into the more of the writing, there's a bunch of potholes. Dr. Martine,
plot holes.
plot holes.
Yeah, holes in the plot.
Thank you guys for listening to the Simply Whelm podcast. No, but there's a lot of plot holes with Dr. Martine, that you were saying earlier. Just supposedly there's this chemistry. They kissed once or twice on screen, and that's it. There was nothing else that was romantic about it.
Right, and the kiss was like, okay, I guess they're kissing because the story deems it necessary.
Yeah, and it's like I didn't get it. It didn't feel natural. I felt like Milo, his character, I would have been more interested in. I felt like out of everything, I was most interested in his character.
Yeah.
Just because with it, he really did seem not evil per se, but like, he has just, he went from not being able to use his legs to literally being able to scale buildings.
Yeah, and he's like, if I gotta eat bitches to do that, I'll do it every day.
Yeah,
like,
I'll do it. Where Michael Morbius literally, like, you couldn't get a read on him of like, is like what he's just a dude. Like, there's no good or bad. And I know he's supposed to be like an anti-hero, but he didn't.
I didn't get villain or hero.
Yeah, I was about to say, if anything, maybe it was a slight villain, but like there's nothing heroic about his character.
No.
And then going into some of like the visual effects into it. They were fine. Like, they weren't bad. Like, it wasn't like bad CGI. As a matter of fact, I know we got to talking about it. There was actually a good, shot of him being, Morbius, and seeing all the details on his face and everything like that. That didn't look bad.
No,
but I said, like, just you can tell they, when they move real quick or when they're running or jumping or flying, colors, like whatever color shirt or pants they're wearing. Yeah. And it felt like I was at times watching like a Starburst commercial.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just like, what's going on? There's just all the streams are in the way. I can't see what the hell's going on. Like, what am I watching? It is just a blur. There wasn't, I mean, and this is the part that really threw me for the curve. There was not a whole lot of action that stood out to me.
No, no, at all. I said, like, for action, I said pretty bland and hard to follow visually. A lot of slowdown shots to give you an idea of what's happening, and Morbius and Milo just look like cats swatting at each other.
Yep.
Where you're like, okay, I don't know what's going on, and then all of a sudden it slows down, and you're like, okay, it just looks like two cats threatening to hit each other. And then it's just, you like the big scene from the trailers is like the scene on the cargo ship where he turns for the first time and he kills everybody. And if like it could have been interesting because it had like some horror movie vibes to it, but it just wasn't shot very interestingly, and it wasn't exciting when it probably should have been. It's like the first action scene.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because it really was like you see him break the door, which I thought was somewhat interesting. It's like, okay, it shows his strength.
He's strong, yeah.
And then it just goes into the guys walking down the hall, and they're just picked off one by one, and it's fairly quick, and then nothing said about it.
Yeah, and not interestingly either. It's just you see a scream and a gun drop, or this guy gets picked up in the air. It was all like, okay, we've seen this in Jurassic Park and any number of horror movies, Alien,
And then really the only, I suppose, action scene, because Morbius didn't fight anybody really, like that was interesting. But yeah, I suppose the only fight between him and Milo that was somewhat interesting was, when he summoned the bats with his Percy Jackson powers. So he has echolocation, and he can summon bats, I guess.
Right.
And he dips his hand in the water, and the
water all starts to vibrate and ripple.
Yeah. And then a bunch of bats come in, and I remember I leaned over and I was like, I didn't know we're watching Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief. Like, this is crazy. What a cool reboot.
Right. Like, as the bats are circling him and picking him up, and like he's just fine now, I just to myself went, word.
Yeah, like it's like okay, did they heal him? How did they heal? Like if they just put in more
Yeah.
detail, like okay,
Yeah,
how
he
did
was
they
on the
heal him?
ropes. Yeah.
And I don't know.
I say I can take a big breath and just read my whole list to you if you want.
Yeah, lay it on me because I feel bad for dogging on it so hard, but like there's just
There's not a lot of bright spots for me.
yeah.
All right. Okay, there's a scene right at the beginning from the trailers as well where he's in a cave in Costa Rica and he cuts his hand open to attract all the vampire bats, and it just kind of happens, and it feels like there was supposed to be a couple scenes ahead of it explaining why he was there. The first 20 minutes or so do a shit ton of jumping around where it's Costa Rica, and then you're looking at 25 years earlier in Greece. Then it jumps to Morbius receiving a Nobel Prize for inventing artificial blood, which they invented just so that he didn't have to drink human blood. And then you are just in the hospital where he has finished his research on the bats that he caught 20 minutes earlier in the movie. It really feels like there were scenes that were cut for time, potentially, because a lot of times if a studio lacks confidence in a movie, they'll cut the runtime down so they can get more showings in per day to try and make as much money as they can before word of mouth cuts the legs off the box office run, right? Which I really would expect this to maybe be that kind of case.
Yeah.
Speaking of money, Milo just has fucking money, even though he's been in the care of Dr. Emil his whole life. He can afford like hired thugs and a cargo ship and shit like that.
And he
he's
lives
just
in a
funded
mansion.
all of Morbius's work. He's got a mansion with guards, and it's like, what's this guy do? And they never really address it. Morbius goes out on a cargo ship and injects himself as the first human test subject of a substance that he saw kill a mouse before bringing it back to life. And it kills him, and he comes back to life and starts eating the shit out of everyone on the cargo ship. I did actually have a bit of piqued interest during the scenes where he's like back at his lab and he's studying his new condition, and he's kind of taking a truly scientific approach. It was interesting to see him figure out what he could do and how long he could remain in control of himself, where he's like measuring the time between like feedings, basically.
Yeah,
And
that was
he's using the artificial blood. And like I said, the artificial blood was kind of a MacGuffin to keep him morally better than Milo. Milo comes to see him. I did say this is the first and last time we see Dr. Morbius do science. Milo comes to see him and is like, "Sick, it worked. Stick me, boss." And Morbius is like, "No, you'll turn into a monster." And so Milo's like, "Fuck you," and he leaves. And somehow Milo got a hold of a vial and must stick himself while he's still in the hospital because he eats a nurse down in the basement. And just everybody assumes, obviously, that it's Morbius that did it. So Morbius goes to jail. When Morbius gets out of jail, he and Milo fight, and they fly around like a couple of spooky ghosts blown in the wind. Morbius finds an abandoned lab underground that thugs are using to print counterfeit bills, and he manages to just repurpose it into a lab for him to manufacture poison. He tells his, quote, girlfriend that he refuses to drink human blood, so after he poisons Milo, he intends to poison himself as well. And his girlfriend later dies, tells him to drink her blood so he'll be big and strong when he fights Milo, and he does, and then he gets the shit kicked out of him when Milo just gives him a scratch across the tummy. You said it probably more aptly than I did, but I said Morbius has vibrators for fingers and calls an army of bats in that somehow heal him. He just dips his fingers in the water and they just... Morbius discovers the art of bat bending and pins Milo down long enough to poison him. His girlfriend opens her eyes. Morbius fucks off into the night and the movie stops.
We need to go to like Wikipedia and that needs to be the synopsis.
Just copy paste it. I thought the movie felt like it was originally less serious and they cut out all of the fun but forgot to replace it with anything compelling. We kind of touched on it. It felt cringy.
Oh, his girlfriend's a vampire too now.
Right, yeah. She's dead, opens her eyes, they're red, and then, like I said, he fucks off into the night and the movie stops. And, like, I can't stop thinking about the fact that we laughed out loud at a fucking line that I'm almost certain was supposed to be serious. Like, he says to the officer, "I'm getting hungry, you wouldn't like me when I'm hungry." And, like, it didn't feel like a wink and a nod. It was just, oh my God, it just made us cringe. And
but who hasn't been there?
Yeah, it is not. No, and like there's a bunch of stuff cut out. Like you touched on some of the humor being cut out, but like in the trailers there was a bunch of connections to Spider-Man and things like that, where like there's a photo of like graffiti on the wall behind him that's the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man suit
Okay,
from
yeah.
the Spider-Man PS4 game though, so it's like
Yeah.
two ways removed. But it has the word murderer spray painted across it, so that's obviously a reference to like the MCU Spider-Man.
Tom Holland, yeah.
And then in one of the other shots in that same trailer, you see Oscorp Tower from the Amazing Spider-Man movies. So it's like, okay, what world does this exist in?
Right.
With the multiverse, is it like a universe where all of those things exist at the same time? Not obviously the same Spider-Man, but it's that suit, Andy's a murderer, and that Oscorp Tower. I don't know.
Does that lead to them making a new Spider-Man?
Maybe this universe has its own Spider-Man.
But I thought they did a
but-
really good job with Tom Holland, what they just did.
Yeah, exactly. So it feels weird to, and I've seen people saying maybe this is the Amazing Spider-Man universe, which okay, maybe, but I don't know. I don't know that I want that either, because like the first two Amazing Spider-Man, like the first Amazing Spider-Man was, it was pretty okay. Like I wasn't angry at it or anything like that. But the Amazing Spider-Man 2 was really not great. Where like they kind of went, yeah, we're gonna make sequels to this bitch, and then didn't. So again, maybe that lends credence to the fact that this is them going back to the well on that. But yeah, I just Adrian Toomes is in one of the trailers as like there's a meeting between him and Morbius at the actual detention center, and none of those things are in the movie. Like that would have made a lot of sense to bring Adrian Toomes in there if he's gonna be in this,
Right.
and they could have just used the explanation of like he's a variant, right?
Yeah.
Like it doesn't have to be the same Adrian Toomes, but they do. None of those things happen in the actual movie, but Adrian Toomes is in the post-credit scenes, and he's pulled into the Morbius universe somehow, like through the purple cracks in the sky from No Way Home, even though that's not at all how that shit works. Like,
right.
He's from the MCU, so he stays in the MCU. Because the way that all worked was that people outside of the MCU that knew Peter Parker was Spider-Man got pulled into the MCU.
Correct.
Yeah. And then at the end, yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, as well as it's so hard to tell whether, going back to it being jokes, because Adrian Toomes, the first thing he said was, "Let's see how good the food is here."
Right, yeah, and you're like, okay, so... Which, again, if that scene was originally in the movie and not a post-credit scene, that lends to my theory that the movie was originally a more funny movie, and then they made it more serious.
Which,
Which I don't know that it would have been better as a funny movie, but you can tell where there was an original tone, and then they adjusted, and it didn't work.
Right.
So the post-credit scene. So yeah, like you said, the first thing he says, he's like, yeah, he just shows up in a cell in the prison, and obviously there's a prisoner that wasn't there that now is, and he's claiming to be a man named Adrian Toomes. So that's all over the news. And then that's the whole first post-credit scene, and then there's a second scene where Morbius is just out in the desert. Why is he still alive? He says, like, fucking, I'm not gonna eat human blood, whatever, I'll kill myself before I do that. Well, guess what? He was running out of time, and he's still around. And he just meets him out in the desert, and is like, what it is. And Toomes just rolls up and is like, doesn't say much, but he's got a slightly different vulture suit on, and he's like, like a couple of guys like you and me, we could make some good. And fucking Morbius just goes, interesting. And then it just stops.
Cuts. Yeah, didn't make any sense.
No, it was just, and like, I don't know if both of those scenes were supposed to be in the movie originally, and there was a different post-credit scene, or maybe there was originally only one post-credit scene, and it was that one, but that they would introduce Adrian Toomes earlier in the movie. I don't know. There was actually an interview that I read today where the director made it sound like there was a whole storyline that got cut out of the movie, which might explain why the FBI just kind of doesn't have anything to do in the movie. because they may have been more prominent. And so who knows? There might have been a bunch of stuff up as a part of that storyline that we just didn't get to see, and that could explain why it feels like there is something missing.
Yeah, and I don't know. I really like Adrian Toome's character in Spider-Man: Homecoming, so it's just like don't ruin that, please.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Don't stain that. Which again, that's why I think they probably could have gone with the variant route and been like, yeah, there's an Adrian Toomes in this universe as well who becomes the Vulture. But I don't know. Visual effects, I said it was pretty inconsistent. A lot of the fight scenes are just two CGI blurs just spinning around each other like the Tasmanian Devil. And the vampire face that Morbius and Milo have varied wildly. It looked like a Snapchat filter at times, and then other times it looked like good prosthetics. Like you mentioned, there's a couple where his face is... specifically, the one that I thought of is at the end, bat bending Milo against the wall. And he's like growling or yelling or something, and he's snarling. And it looked really solid. I mean, it looked like a man's face, or a creature's face, right?
Yeah.
But just the difference between, like I said, there are times where it just looks like a Snapchat filter, or you open your mouth and the face goes scary. Dude, fuck,
just didn't
it's
do
exhausting
it for me.
and it wasn't good. Like, do you want to say your final thoughts? Or do you want me to say mine first? Because I'm done. I want to move on. I'm getting mad.
Yeah, my I'm getting all worked up. My final thoughts is you had so much potential with it, and I'm not a fan of Jared Leto. I've just heard a lot of bad things about him. Just some of the stuff he's done, and it wasn't necessarily the acting that was bad. I think it all really came down to writing. Like it wasn't good. See,
right.
They had a really good. I feel like they had a really good shot of making it a good movie, and they just kind of blew it.
There is something in there. Yeah.
And they just blew it.
Yeah, they just didn't. Yeah. I said I had pretty low expectations going in to see Morbius, and they were pretty much met. It wasn't a total dumpster fire. It was just so damn plain and boring that I never want to sit through it again. I cannot shake the feeling that there was a lot more movie there originally, and I don't know if it would have made the movie any better by keeping it in or not, but what we are left with feels incomplete. Yeah, there was stuff there that I think there was, like, if they did I feel like they tanked the character. There's something there with that character, but I don't think it's with this one. Like with this, I don't think they can bring him back. They would have to do some real hard work to make me go, oh shit, Morbius is in this?
Yeah, and that's going to be such a hard thing to do, because, I mean, if they try to redeem him with, like, a second Morbius before they make a Sinister Six,
right?
I'm not going to go see it.
Well, if we're still doing this, we will, but...
I guess. Are those applications still going for the second cut?
Just pull me out, coach. I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah, no.
Get me off this wild ride. So, what you been thinking about this week, Christian?
I'm glad you asked, because, honestly, I've been thinking about a couple things.
Yeah.
First, I'm still thinking about cryptids.
Welcome to Christian's Cryptid Corner.
Yeah. Welcome back to Christian's Cryptid Corner. This week, we'll be talking about the skunk ape. This animal, you heard me. This creature originates in Florida. Florida.
I bet there's a lot of people in Florida that have been described as a skunk ape. No offense, Floridians.
Oh, hell, that's what they called me in high school.
Right, yeah.
So, the description, I have two. This large, hairy mammal is said to inhabit the southern United States, but it is most often spotted in Florida. It gets its name from the unpleasant odor, which is said to be similar to rotten eggs or methane. Although reports of the creature were most common in the 1960s and 70s, sightings still continue to this day, but the most famous ones took place back in the year 2000. And then I have...
just a big hairy mammal that smells like farts. It's just a guy.
Like, that's me in high school. But then I have one. There was a reporting in the early 1800s with a family in Key Largo going to the sheriff's office claiming that the skunk ape was stalking them. They even tried to pass a bill that was pending until 1977, and then they called it calling for the protection of the skunk ape, but unfortunately it did not pass. Skunk apes reports have been issued in the Miami suburbs throughout the years. So, I mean, to this day, there's still...
I can't stop thinking about it was last week or the week prior, how I said that there's usually, you know, I don't believe in the supernatural, so I like to look at what could be the true part of this, right? And I just like the idea of them just seeing a NASCAR fan in the dark and going, "My God, it's the skunk ape. Do you smell him?"
Yeah, do you smell that thing? I don't know,
It's
man.
the skunk
Florida's wild, dude. So
ape.
if I feel like if there was to be a creature, it would probably fucking pull up in Florida.
Yeah, but the skunk ape. That's what we're rocking is the skunk ape.
Yeah, you done heard. Yeah,
Yeah.
so you heard it here. When the world gets invaded and skunk ape comes out and, you know, helps us.
Just rocks the shit.
Yeah, yeah. I said it here first.
So you said you had a few things you were thinking about. Is that it for
Yeah.
Cryptid Corner?
Yeah, for Cryptid Corner, that's all I got for this week. As always, you can definitely reach us out at simplyoneMailbag@gmail.com if there's any cryptids that you wanted to be read.
I like that this is like your backdoor pilot for your own podcast.
Yes, I love them. I love cryptids. I've also recently tried taking up lucid dreaming.
Word?
Yeah, it hasn't worked.
No.
Well, I have one of those LED lights that change color in my room, and so I'll turn it to like a deep purple, and I'll put like white noise on in the background, and typically I'll have it like it's like a bedroom, but like the window's space, or like you're in a space cruiser or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And it'll play for like 10 hours, and I read that like if you lay flat on your back and keep your hands at your side, it like confuses the brain to keep you awake as you fall asleep, so your brain's just more active, so when you have a dream, you're more likely to be like, oh, I'm dreaming.
I'm dreaming. Yeah.
And I'm not sure if it's just when I lay on my back.
Spend a lot of time looking at like faces of watches and looking in the mirror a lot, because then in dreams when you look in the mirror or look at the clock, like the faces of the watches and stuff will be blurred. And if you look in the mirror, you won't be in it. Like it'll be blurry. And so that's a good trigger within the dream to go, oh, it's not real.
Well, I'll fall asleep, and that's it. And then I'll just wake up to my alarm, and I'm like, well, that fucking sucked.
What a fucking bust. Yeah.
I basically just went to bed uncomfortable.
Uncomfortably, just laying on your back with just in the background. I lucid dreamt once on accident.
Really?
Yeah, I was taking a nap, like a couch nap, where they just kind of hit different. Where I'd been
those are the best.
Sleep deprived, working as a waiter and stuff, and I was like, man, I came home at like 3 p.m. I was like, I'm gonna take me a little cat nap, and I laid down and I blacked out. A little napping nap, and I had a dream that I was being chased by zombies, naturally, and I ran to my dad's house, and the railing on the front of the house was wrong. And for some reason, that was what made my brain go, this shit ain't real. Wait a minute. Not the zombies, but the railing being wrong.
Yeah.
Made my brain go, oh, we're dreaming. And it was weird. I was like, oh, I'm dreaming. And then I started to fly up until I woke up. So I didn't really get to do anything with it. But I did have the weird realization of like, oh, I'm dreaming. And then the dream kind of falling apart as I woke up.
I've only ever had like one really, really bizarre dream. I was like in high school, maybe like my junior or senior year.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I fell asleep and I woke up, and I got up and I opened up my door to go downstairs, and it was just black. Like it was like, no house was there, nothing. So I was like, that's pretty weird. Closed the door.
Yeah.
And I looked out my back window, and it was still like my backyard. So I was like, oh, well, I'll just hop out here because that seems logical.
Right. Yeah.
And as I lifted up the window, it started to flood, like water was coming in. So with my Bear Grylls expertise knowledge, I was like, well, I got to swim out of this bee. So I
Yeah.
swim out the window and I'm just swimming up and up and up, and then I hit the clouds and like I got on top of a cloud, and like miles away there, I just see this old guy sitting in a chair, which I presume probably in the dream was God. Um,
Yeah.
which is interesting because I'm not religious. Um, but he stood up and he was all of a sudden right in front of me and he touched my forehead and I woke up. And
Righteous.
that's it. And I've never had anything like that.
Did you pee the bed?
I don't know, man, but it was after I had White Castle, so I'll probably steer clear from him.
Yeah. That'll do it every time.
Yeah, it's the crave case, man. It just gets me.
It just gets you. You had the meat sweats in your sleep.
Meat sweats. Yeah. I've also been thinking about, of course, The Day Before coming out here soon. Very excited for it.
Thank you, everybody, so much for listening.
And then as well as
Holy hell, you're just Mr. Thinker this week, aren't you?
I told you I've been thinking a whole lot.
Well, I'll just call you Plato, huh?
Yeah, fun to play with, not to eat. Yeah. But really, space. Space always fascinates me. I've been playing Kerbal Space Program,
Right.
thinking I would be able to really, just master this game.
Yeah, and you've
And
not.
that's not the case. Me and my assistant, we've set up multiple days of trying to launch a spacecraft into space and try to get to land on the moon, but it's almost like it's rocket science.
Yeah.
That's what I've been thinking about. What about you? What have you been thinking about?
So I've been using my iPad to draw in my free time, and I'm not good at all, but I do enjoy it. Where I've done a couple things where I'm like, oh shit, that was really good, and then I show it to somebody, and they're like, oh, you going for some abstract art? I'm like, it's an eyeball, and they're like, of course it is. Yes, it is.
Eyeball.
Of course, yes, it is. I'm like, well, maybe I should look into those apps that are just basically coloring books. So like, there's not such a steep skill curve where I can just, okay, they've already got the picture drawn. I just fill it in, right? Because I do enjoy it and it is relaxing, but yeah, I want to feel good about it when I'm done. And then I bought
You're
this
looking at
game.
this eyeball, and in a weird way, it looks like a butthole.
Yeah, it's like, oh wow, why are you drawing anuses? Like, that's my mom. That's a portrait of my mother. No, I bought a game for my Switch called Where the Water Tastes Like Wine. And it was super cheap. It was like a $4 game. And it's about traveling the US, and it's really simple, like art style. It almost looks like paper, like folded paper.
Sure.
But it's about traveling the US and discovering stories from the strangers that you meet and using those stories as currency for more important characters you meet in the future. So like basically, I might meet this guy and his son hanging out on the side of the road with them, and I find out what their story. And then I move on to one of the bigger cities, and somebody there has something that I want. I need to give them the stories that I think they want to hear to get what I need from them.
Okay.
And so it's kind of interesting, and it's just as simple like, you're walking forward, and then you get a prompt to choose this option or this option when you're talking to somebody, and then you get a story from them, and then you just keep walking. So it's super simple, but like I said, it was only like a $4 game, but the art style and the gameplay loop are pretty worth the like low price of the game.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just a nice chill game when you're just wanting to, relax and lay in bed and play something.
I mean, hey, there you go. I don't think I have any new games I've been playing. Damn it. I really want to get back into Animal Crossing. I've been thinking about it for like ever, and I know I mentioned it to you.
Yeah.
I lost my Switch charger, and I accepted defeat.
Right, yeah, you're just like, well, I'll just never use it.
I was like, I'll never play my Switch again. I guess this is what it is.
She's dead, yeah.
You lived not a long life, but you lived a good life, Switch.
By God, you had a life. What do you say? Let's dig into our mailbag. Yeah, I got a letter. Much more brief than the last one. Yeah. I wonder what's inside.
Careful. You don't want to get copyrighted.
Oh, yeah, no, yeah. We were short. We were brief. So they wrote, overwhelmed heroes of the internet. So I'm guessing that's us. I do want you to know that the subject line said, let me pull it back up here. I thought you would appreciate it. It says,
Yes.
host number 2, what a letdown.
Whoa.
Yeah. And,
Whoa.
which is odd because they never mention you in the email, just the subject line. Following the April Fool's joke that was the Morbius release, snap, what are some of the greatest comic book or sci-fi failures Hollywood or television studios have forced us to experience? Sincerely, Let Down in Louisiana. I think that's like a play on Sleepless in Seattle. Just let down.
Some big sci-fi letdowns.
Yeah, or comic book. And not necessarily letdowns, but like failures or just, wow, that was not good. First one that came to mind for me was the Fantastic Four reboot from like 2017.
Uh-huh.
It was just not good, like at all. It was kind of like a Morbius, where it just happens to you. I didn't go to the theater and see it. It was on like DirecTV or something, and I fell asleep. And when I woke up, the movie was still going, and I was like, "Fuck!" And I left the room. I went somewhere else.
I'm trying to think of the name. I can't remember what it's called, but basically, it was about this group of teens, and they found like this crater of some sorts,
Mm-hmm.
and they all got like powers from it. And
Are you talking about fucking? Oh my god, you shithead!
it's in that
It's
in
found
that
footage. It's fucking. Oh my god, what the hell? Why did you do this to me?
it's all taking place on that like a handheld camera.
Yeah, it's a point of view film. Fuck you. It is not Project X. It is. Hold on, let me pull it up here. Son of a bitch! People are yelling at us right now. It's got Michael B. Jordan in it.
Yeah.
It's. You want to know something funny? Not like you'll fucking piss yourself laughing at this, but it's the same writer director as the Fantastic Four movie I talked about. And what's wild to me is Chronicle. And what's wild to me is that Chronicle is a great movie. So you're high on crack.
I just didn't enjoy it.
You were also like 10 years old. You just didn't fucking know what art was.
Whoa, settle down.
You and your fucking Neanderthal brow.
What? I don't have a unibrow. Do I really have a unibrow?
No, no, you're perfect.
But I mean, it wasn't bad. It just
you skunk
ass. Whoa! All right, settle.
Easy. I'm so tender. No, yeah. So you're wrong. I'll tell you that. It's a good movie. You need to watch it again. But
to each is their own.
Yeah. I mean, there are things that are subjectively and objectively true. This is one that's objectively true. It is a good movie. Fucking, I'm gonna say something that might stir the pot. The Rise of Skywalker.
You didn't like?
Not good. No. I left the theater and went, boof.
I thought, Force Awakens. I thought was good. Had the same concept of A New Hope.
Yeah, I mean, it was a fresh.
Which is
okay. It wasn't an exact ripoff, but it was pretty damn close.
Yeah. Last Jedi had its moments, I feel like.
Yep.
And then Rise of Skywalker.
I didn't hate The Last Jedi like most Star Wars fans did.
Yeah, like I said, I think it had its moments where I was like, oh my god, this is gas.
I think the worst thing that The Last Jedi gave us was The Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah.
Where The Rise of Skywalker, instead of deciding to just press forward with what The Last Jedi did, went, well, we need to undo that, and spent so much of the movie undoing it that they didn't fucking wrap anything up.
Yeah, it's just a whole lot of catch up.
Fucking another like rough that they're gonna say that line is fucking Oscar Isaac going, somehow the Emperor came back, and that's just the only explanation that we get.
It just didn't add up, and it just wasn't making sense. I agree with you on that with Rise of Skywalker. Like I can get behind that.
I didn't like the Kingsman 2 very much.
Ooh, I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, the Golden Circle. I didn't like it. Like I really enjoyed Kingsman Secret Service.
The first
Golden
one was
Circle
really
just wasn't it. Yeah, the Golden Circle it wasn't gas or nothing.
I am really excited for to off topic here.
Yeah.
The Nicolas Cage movie.
Oh yeah, something like the unbearable weight of incredible talent or something like that.
I thought it was called Nick Cage. Um,
No.
but no, it looks amazing. Like it looks like obviously the whole thing's just a joke.
Yeah, and it's got that boy Pedro in it, so
Yeah, Pedro Pascal, my man.
he's hot stuff right now.
Yeah,
Between him and Oscar Isaac,
good years for them.
Hollywood's got themselves a big wet spot for those guys.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that's. I'm sure as soon as we stop recording, I'll think of like 9 other movies.
As we do.
Ooh, fucking the Inhumans television show, dog ass.
Yeah.
Yeah, bad. Like not good. Like you have a hard time finding it on Disney Plus because they don't want you to.
Yeah, they purposely try to hide it.
Yeah, they're like, fuck it. We don't want anybody to watch that shit again. One of the characters in that, her name's Medusa. Her hair is like, it's like prehensile. She can control it like tentacles.
Huh?
And they just fucking shave it off because they didn't want to do the effect.
Well,
so then she just doesn't really have a power at the end. There's a guy who can basically see the future or can see like all possible pathways in front of him, like during a fight or when he's trying to escape or whatever. So he's got that enough of a precognition that he can get out of most situations, right?
Mm-hmm.
Guess what happens to him?
What happens to him?
He trips and falls down an embankment and hits his head and forgets who he is. Like, dead ass, that happens.
Just sounds not good.
It's not good. And like, that's only like the first 3 episodes, and I haven't watched past that. There's like 8 episodes, and then they just canceled it and didn't talk about it. Yeah, so I don't know. Like I said, I'll think of like 9 other things after that, after we get off here. But I think that's all I've got at the moment. How about you?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm a little biased. I'm a huge sucker for sci-fi films.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I'd really, really have to think about some. I know there was one Netflix original. Shit, I can't remember what it's called. It was basically about
Altered Carbon?
No.
No.
No. Basically, it was they sent a ship, a spaceship full of babies into space because it was like on a course to, I think maybe Mars or another planet to colonize.
Okay.
And they just start to rebel.
Okay.
And, as they grow.
Okay.
And I just felt like it could have been a little more. But I can't remember the name of it. Let me see here.
I forgot to start a timer, so Lord knows how long we've been going. The Orbital Children?
No. It had the same guy from, I think, Bandersnatch.
It wasn't Lost in Space, was it?
No.
That's the Robinson family when they crash on the alien planet. And they've got the robot. Danger, Will Robinson. Danger.
It really just kind of...
Gotta tell you brought up a riveting point.
Yeah, I don't know. Just
Another Life?
From there. Oh? No. Yeah, sorry.
You got anything more?
I think that's really all I've been thinking about lately as it goes with the email we got. I'm pretty set.
And yeah, again, we want to thank you guys so much for your attention and support. If you guys enjoyed this episode, be sure to give it a great review and tell your friends about it. Word of mouth can be one of the biggest endorsements out there.
That's right.
Christian, if people wanted to get in touch with us, to give us some feedback, ask us questions, send us a nice letter, talk shit about you, how would they do that?
Yeah, so if you definitely wanted to send in a nice comment about moi, you could let us know at simplywhelmedmailbag@gmail.com, or you could follow any of our social medias. At Twitter is going to be whelmed_simply, and then on Instagram at Simply One Podcast.
That's right. Next week, we're thinking we're going to give a bit of an in-depth look at the upcoming Sonyverse movies. Like, there's a Madame Web project. We got Kraven the Hunter coming up. And it really seems like Sony is pressing this thing. They're going to force this whole shared universe of Spider-Man villains into existence. And I would at least like to be informed on it going in. Maybe it'll get me excited for some bad movies.
Yeah, they're going to be shoving it down our gullet.
That's right. So, you got anything more before we move on? Before we leave?
No, I think I am all good there.
All right. Thank you, everyone, so much for listening. We will see you next Wednesday.
Bye.